Thanks everybody for coming, and also thank the Sausalito Yacht Club for permitting me to do this once again. Sometimes when people see me, once is enough, but I'll take this as a nice sign that they invited me back. Last time I was here, I talked about a circumnavigation that I did with Terry Schroed, my good pal, about 20 years ago, almost 20 years ago now. And this is a picture of the circumnavigation. It was, it's a basic run of the mill circumnavigation. It's your ordinary one, not like the heroic ones being done right now with the Vendée Globe or the Jules Verne. This is just your regular old circumnavigation. But it's nothing to be ashamed of. So anyway, tonight we're going to talk about doing things around here, because when Terry and I got back, this is the boat we took, Erickson 39, and this is on the bay, and we started sailing around the bay just like we always did. And one day, I can't remember who, one of us turned to the other one and said, "What's the fun in this? You can't die or anything." And it was just, it wasn't as we were used to being on a big adventure, and now we weren't on a big adventure anymore. This was it's lovely on the bay, but we'd done it so many times, we started to think we needed to come up with another plan. And we certainly weren't going to voyage across an ocean again, because we're both married, and believe it or not, it's not fashionable these days, but we both really like our wives. And we didn't really want to spend any more time apart from them. So we wanted to do figure out something local to do. And also this boat, it turns out, is pretty much overkill, in my opinion, for just messing around on the bay. It's heavily outfitted, and it's a big boat, 39 footer. You don't really need that to goof around on the bay, especially single-handed. So I sold Maverick. That was the name. And we came up with a plan for local expeditions. Actually, this it was a couple of years before we came up with this. But then anyway, we bought this Catalina 22. Now, you might think of this as kind of a starter boat, but it's actually a genius boat. And it's no wonder that Catalina, this is the first boat they made, and it became one of the best-selling boats of all time. And there's a good reason for that. It's real solid. It's forgiving. It's sea kindly. It's got a lot of interior space, considering how small it is. It's just 22 feet. And importantly for us, it's got a swing keel. So it's not just shoal draft, it's like you can fold it up, which some people use as a depth sounder. I mean, you hit the bottom, oh, it's shallow, so you pull up the keel. And that's exactly what we wanted, because we wanted to go up to Tomales Bay. Now, we'd sailed up to Tomales Bay before with the big boat, but there's a lot of Tomales Bay that's very shallow, and you don't really want, well, you can sail up there with a big boat. Maverick drew about 6 feet, but it's limited where you can go. And so this would expand our ability to explore Tomales Bay. Now, this was going to be accompanied with a rowboat. And now, we had an inflatable to go around the world, which was practical. But I always wanted a hard dinghy, a real rowboat, because I'm sure you can't really row an inflatable very well. And I also always wanted to build a boat. I wanted to build a strip plank one, but I couldn't find a plan that would allow me to get it inside my van. So I got some plans from bateau.com, I think it's called. Jacques Martin is the designer. And here's the plans and some marine plywood. And this is a stitch and glue construction, which is just like it sounds. You just cut out the pattern like you would a dress. I've never made a dress, but maybe someday. But you just follow the plans. You cut out a pattern on the Maranti, and then you put it together you drill holes and put it together with zip ties. I mean, it's really simple. And then in between the zip ties, you put some thickened epoxy and take the zip ties out and you got a boat. Well, no, there's one more step, which is you got to tape up the seams. it, would, it would leak pretty bad if you didn't do that. And believe it or not, stitch and glue is not that new of a technology. I mean, epoxy and plywood are new, but the Egyptians stitched their boats together. So it's not that new of a thing. Anyway, you put it together over frames, and then here I'm putting the shear clamp on, and then you put some seats in, and then you spend a million hours fairing and sanding and painting and varnishing, and you come up with a boat. And so now we got a 22 footer with a sail, and then this thing doesn't have any propulsion other than the arms of an elderly man. That's what you're limited to. So Terry and I are now launching this out. This is out at China Camp. And so now we got a rowboat. All right. So with those two very nice, or I have affection for them anyway, very nice boats, at least suitable for the job. Most of these are me by myself with the rowboat, but a lot of them are also with Terry with the sailboat. And all these little squiggles you see are maybe about half of the number of little expeditions I took on the bay. And this green line here, this is the boundary of Marin County. And up at the top here, now I've been in Marin County for 50 years and I've seen most of it. I mean, I've either mountain biked or hiked or sailed around an awful lot of this county in 50 years. I like it here. But I'm not sure I knew the northern boundary is right up here where you see this little purple line. And that is defined by this piece of water here, which is called Estero Americano. And you probably haven't seen this ever. And the reason you haven't seen it is because if you drive up Highway 1 by Smallest Bay, right at Walker Creek, past Nick's Cove, the road goes inland. It goes in over to Valley Ford and then back out here to Bodega Bay. So this triangle here is very remote and it's all private land. And the only way you can get there is really by launching a boat not too far from Valley Ford and then rowing out or paddling out. And it's about 6 miles. It's a bit of a hump to get out there, but I was determined to do it. And let's see, this purple line you see is my track when I tried it with my rowboat. I launched here and then tried to make it out to the beach, like I say, about 6 miles. Well, I didn't make it that day because the wind came up and stopped me in my tracks before I made it to the beach. So I went, here's a chart too. Here's the Estero and then Bodega Bay up here. Here's Bodega Head. And down here is a safe water buoy. And then there's Bodega Rock. I don't know if you guys have sailed up there, but anyway, that's how that works. And then this is an aerial view of the Estero. Once again, that is the boundary between Sonoma and Marin County. And then this is the beach that we're trying to get to. Now you can get to that beach by walking down from Bodega Bay, but you have to do it at a low tide and you don't want to get caught. So plan returning before the tide comes in. But anyway, the other way to get there, because this is all private property out here, all this completely remote area that's completely pristine and this beautiful coast of California is all private property. So the day I succeeded in getting out there, I didn't take my rowboat. I just logistically, it was a bunch of friends were going and I took a kayak and I think there were about a dozen of us there and 2 kayaks and a canoe. So 4 total made it out to the beach because it is a hump. And so not everybody made it out. But the key to making it out there is leaving real early in the morning before there's any wind. Like you want to be on the water by 8 or 9 o'clock, 9 o'clock the latest. And then you can make it out here. The wind came up this day And so actually scooted us right back. The trip back was pretty easy. This is now looking at Bodega Head from that beach. And I think over here you can see the safe water buoy, and then this is Bodega Rock, just over in the haze there. Now, just south of that is Tomales Bay, and Tomales Bay is what we bought the 22 for. And there's plenty of stuff to do here. Terry and I had sailed up here before you in Maverick in the 39 footer, and how we did it, I would recommend doing it this way because it's a long ways up there from the bay, and by the time you get to Tomales Point to go around the point, it's not going to be. It's not. There's no way it's going to be early in the day, and the wind will be up. So, what we did was we'd go up and stay. We'd sail up to Drake's Bay, stay overnight, and then first light the next day we'd head around the point and up to Tomales Point, and then down into the bay. And if you do that, you don't want to be messing around with this. This is the bar at the mouth of the bay, and people die up there every year. Um, I'll talk about that more in a minute. Dying is so much fun to talk about. But anyway, this is a dangerous place. Anyway, and you go around the corner, and you want to be here early in the morning on a rising tide, so you have a flood. You don't have wind against current, so that the bar won't be breaking. And also, there's some shallow spots in here. So if you decide to do this, you want to do it on a rising tide, because I was taught when I was a young whippersnapper that you always go aground on a rising tide. That's not always possible to plan. Anyway, there's lots and lots of stuff to do up here, but there's no marina to speak of. I mean, one of the hotels has a little bit of a marina for small boats, but it dries out, is my recollection. Anyway, you can't even keep the 22 there. So what you have to do is either launch every day or you buy a mooring. And there are moorings off of Marshall. You've probably driven by them and seen, oh, there's boats out there. And you went, how does that work? And well, how it works is you actually buy a mooring from a guy named Skip Villasich, kind of runs the mooring operation up there, and he'll sell you one. Skip is quite a character, and he's been up there. His family's been up there for 100 years, and he knows everything there is to know about Tomales Bay and all the people. He knows everything. He'll tell you too. He'll talk a bit. Old Skip will, but just great stuff. And so anyway, you buy the mooring from Skip, and then nowadays, when we started going up there, we didn't have to get a permit, and it's a very similar situation to Richardson Bay. There's a problem with derelict boats, and people would, put their boat on a mooring, and then they, I don't know, just flake out and leave or whatever. And you'd have this boat on a mooring that nobody was taking care of. And then the boats come loose and they get under somebody's deck, or they go aground on somebody's property. And then somebody's got to clean it up, and you can't find the guy. So the state has instituted a permit process, and you have to have your boat registered, and you have to have insurance like a marina. And a lot of guys cried bloody murder about this, the government, blah, blah, blah. But it ain't cool, to have your boat just come loose and wreck other people's stuff. That's really just not okay. And then not be able to track you down. So I wasn't opposed to it myself. And it's still, even with that, it's cheaper to buy a mooring and pay. You have to get it inspected too. And all that costs money, but it's still not as much as keeping a boat in a slip down in San Francisco Bay. So anyway, that's that. And here's the mooring field. This is Marshall Boat Works right there. That's where our mooring was. And Marshall Boat Works is just a funky old boat yard. I just love stuff like this. A bunch of junk and junked out boats lying around. I mean, who doesn't love that? It's not antiseptic. So anyway, this is the first day we were up there. We put there's a nice cement ramp right by Nick's Cove. And this is the pier by Nick's Cove here. There's a little kind of museum out here. And that's a typical Tomales Bay early morning thing. And then here's the boat on the mooring. down at Marshall. So sailing into Tomales Bay is different from the bay. And that's one of the reasons we wanted to go up there. Not that we don't love the bay, but just kind of a different environment, different wind conditions. The wind's puffy and shifty up there. And so this is sailing the little 22 up there on a very pleasant day on Tomales Bay. So there are plenty of places to go up there. And I wanted to show you that will blow. And the mooring field is very unprotected. So you can have 25 knots and trying to tie your boat up. I got in a pickle up there more than once because it was blowing this hard, and I was trying to tie onto the mooring by myself. I won't go into it, but it was ugly. Anyway, I got it done and didn't lose the boat, and I didn't go overboard, which is kind of amazing. Anyway, as I mentioned, when you come in the bay, here's the mouth. This is a place called Lawson's Landing, and you can kind of barely see it here, but there is a little channel in here that has, there's a couple of sticks to mark it. And when we came in the first time with Maverick, we saw that and went, I guess we better not go over there. But now that we had a boat with a folding keel, we figured we could. So one of our expeditions was to go up there. And this is a closer view of Lawson's Landing, or the approach to Lawson's Landing. We still touched a couple of times, but you just crank it up, you know what I mean? So then here we are anchored at Lawson's Landing. This is another kind of funky, just old school thing. I mean, very nostalgic. There's still stuff like this, you know, in Marin County. And you see these trailers on the beach. Maybe you can make out there's trailers there. Well, there's no ramp. So people just back their four-wheel or whatever down on the beach and launch the boat. And I'm sure they get stuck once in a while, but I don't know because I haven't launched out there, but it's just kind of, you know, just old school stuff. And so anyway, then we rowed ashore to the beach. And here's the store at Lawson's Landing. Now this is the place, this is really out of the way. You're not going to get there. The road there is kind of, I mean, it's not on the way to any place. So you've probably never been there, I'm guessing. And it's a cool place to go with a boat. Anyway, every year I mentioned that people will die out on the bar there. And the way it happens is this. See this boat here, this skiff, and you put a outboard on it. And then most people that launch their boats here, they know about the bar. These people are more knowledgeable. But down at Nick's Cove, they may not know. It's a lot easier, and it's a better ramp at Nick's Cove. A lot easier to get there. And right here, there's a sign on the building. And that sign says, don't mess with the bar, basically. It says, unless you know what you're doing. And there isn't any sign like that down at Nick's Cove. So a lot of people launch at Nick's Cove, and then they're fishermen. So they get out there early in the morning. The water's flat. They drive out over the bar, they go fishing, and then they turn around and they, in the afternoon, the bar is breaking. They maybe didn't do their homework about the wind or the current, and now the bar is breaking. But I don't know if you guys have ever approached a breaking bar from seaward, but it's not easy to tell that it's breaking. You just see the back of the waves. They look like waves. They don't look, from the beach, they look different because they're breaking, but on the other side, they don't look that bad. So these guys try to go in, they flip the boat, and they're not wearing PFDs, and they're not wearing PFDs, and they drown. So don't do that, is my advice. Okay, so that's one expedition up to Lawson's Landing. Here's another one over to White Gulch. White Gulch is right below Pierce Point Ranch. So if you've driven out to Tomales Point, the farthest you can get is Pierce Point Ranch, and then you hike out to the point. And so we wanted to anchor down here. This is White Gulch. It's just right opposite to Hog Island, which I'll take you to in a minute. This is where you anchor. And then this old chart, there is actually a newer chart, but this old chart is the one I had, and it showed there was a road going up from the anchorage to the the ranch, but there isn't any such road. So anyway, here we are anchored at White Gulch. And then here's Terry standing by this dinghy. Now, this isn't the dinghy I made. I decided I didn't want to risk my nice dinghy. What you want to do is leave your dinghy up there on the beach. And then so you'll have it. You just drive up there, get in the dinghy and go to your boat. You don't want to have to unload the dinghy every time if you can avoid it. So what we did was down in Sausalito, we found this dinghy for $100, and it wasn't worth that, but we needed a dinghy. So it didn't float and it was in bad shape. So I fixed it up and strengthened the oarlocks, and the transom were just, things were trash. So I fixed it up, and that was going to be our dinghy. We're going to leave on the beach. Now I wanted to paint it because I'd done all this work and I wanted it to look nice, but Terry wouldn't let me. He said, nah, that patina is perfect. Just leave it like it is. So we left it like it is. And, you know, the added advantage is it's not that attractive, right? So to steel. So here's where we're anchored. This is a GPS track of our hike up to Pierce Point Ranch. And there's looking back at Hog Island and Duck Island. And there's Whisper. And here's the ranch. So the next place I'm going to take you to is Hog Island and Duck Island. Now, one kind of interesting thing about these islands, maybe you've driven up Highway 1 and looked out there and gone, oh, there's islands out there. That is the San Andreas Fault. And I'm not really sure what geological processes allowed an island or two to be in the middle of the San Andreas Fault. I'd kind of like to know, but I have a couple of books on the geology of the Point Reyes Natural Seashore, and they just don't talk about it. I want to know, but I don't. So I can't help you with that. But anyway, so this is Hog Island. We'd been out there when we took the big boat up there, and I'd also sailed a dinghy up there a couple of times. And so I've been to Hog Island. And if you go there, it's easy to get up on Hog Island. You land your dinghy here. You don't want to do it over here because the park, this belongs to the park, to the National Seashore. And this is an area where the marine mammals haul out. So they don't want you over here, but you can come here. You're not prohibited from going on the island. You can land your dinghy here and just walk up on Hog Island. But Duck Island is a different matter. It's steep. I hear it was once called Piglet Island. I'll tell you why. This is Hog Island. Now we're looking from sea level at Hog Island and Duck Island. You're right. Hog Island gets its name, according to legend, because there was a barge full of pigs, supposedly, that caught on fire, and the captain grounded the boat on Hog Island and let them go. And then they came back and got them later. Well, they weren't going to escape from the island, and that supposedly that's how they got how it got that name. And then supposedly Duck Island used to be called Piglet, but and seems like that's a better name, but now it's called Duck Island. I don't know why, because all the birds that hang out here are cormorants, not ducks. And the cormorants, you see, when I first started coming here, it was very verdant. It was lush with growth. It was an actually beautiful island. And now it's getting denuded. All these trees are dying because cormorants have nested up there, and their guano is killing the trees. So one day it's just going to be a bare rock, and it's nature's redesign of this situation. But we can't complain because it's nature. We didn't do it. So anyway, that's what the cormorants have done. And now we have landed. So what we did was we took Whisper, the 22 up there, and towed the dinghy, and then we landed on the spit. Now, this picture on the left is from Duck Island looking at Hog Island, and the picture on the right is Hog Island looking at Duck Island. And you can see the spit dries out. So from the aerial photograph, you might have been able to see the spit, but at low tide, it dries out. So that's when we plan to go there. And but we wanted to get up on Duck Island. So we had to climb it. Now that is Bill Juice, and Bill Juice is with us today in this meeting, and me down at the bottom. And Bill is running point up there. He's got the he's got I guess he's got a grappling hook. We brought a grappling hook out there and a rope, and he's trying to get the rope secured so we can climb up there. And we finally did get up there. Terry Schroed, my buddy from the circumnavigation, was also with us, and that's me saluting, and Bill Juiced with the rope. And then here's the three of us, some dumb old guys up to no good, doing things that are appropriate for 8-year-olds. That's us. So Terry on the left, Bill in the middle, and me on the right. And this is not a rock. We're all the way on the top, but this is a tree. And we're trying to duck the guano because there are active cormorants up in the trees. Okay, moving south now, there's a bunch of things we did at Tomales Bay. Went down to Inverness. We did all the beaches on the western side of the bay. Now down here this is the very southern end of Tomales Bay. This is Point Reyes Station. This is Highway 1. And this is Sir Francis Drake, where it goes below the bay and then continues on out this way to Inverness and out to the point. And this is two different trips I took with my rowboat. Both times I went as far as I could without going aground. Now I'm going to back out a little bit and show you. You may not know, I bet you've driven out to the West Marin many times and never really paid attention to where Lagunitas Creek goes. Now Lagunitas Creek, it basically starts in the mountain at Lagunitas Lake, and then that goes into Bontempi, and that goes into Alpine, and that goes into Kent Lake, and then Kent Lake finally spills into Lagunitas Creek. Lagunitas Creek runs along Sir Francis Drake. There's even, if you go into Sammy P. Taylor, there's a trail, a bike trail on the other side of the creek, but you see it running along Sir Francis Drake. But once you get to here to Tokoloma, there is a right turn on Platform Bridge Road, and Platform Bridge Road follows the creek, because if you remember, there's a ridge here between Tokoloma and Olima. There's a ridge. Well, the water is not going to go over the ridge, so it takes a right and goes out this way. And then right here it gets the spill from Nicasio Reservoir, so it's collecting water from all the dams in on this side of Mount Tam. So anyway, it goes down this way here, and then finally, right before you get to Point Reyes Station, there's a bridge, and that bridge is over Lagunitas Creek. So anyway, that's there's a put-in down here, just right at this corner. There's a put-in where I went twice with my rowboat just to explore that area. Again, just a lovely place. This is two trips out to Kent Lagoon, or Bolinas Lagoon, sometimes it's called. The yellow one I went on first, and it's pretty jaggedy because I kept going aground. Again, you got to go out in high tide. It's funny, you kind of have to pay more attention in a rowboat to wind and current and tide than you do in a sailboat, because as I mentioned, there's no power but my old feeble arms. So anyway, the first time I went this way, and this little jot here, this excursion here, is because some power boaters had gone aground out there, and some other power boaters were here trying to rescue this boat, but they had a power boat, so they couldn't get over here. But I happened on the scene at an opportune time, and so I could take them over here, and we managed to get it off. Anyway, the second time I went out, I went over to Kent Island, and that's a real island out there. It's actually, I'd never been there before, but it's more substantial than you might think from an island, and it's fun to walk around there. I didn't know it exactly whether you were permitted, but you can do it. You just have to stay away from the marine mammals, and the marine mammals don't know this. So if you're rowing around, they haven't read the memo, so they'll come right up to you. They don't care. So anyway, This is from the island looking across at Bolinas. And there is a pass here right over there. And that pass is pretty ripping. I wouldn't want to try to go through there. And these guys do, though. All these guys with their boats on moorings out here, they go out through the pass and go fishing. I wouldn't want to do that without local knowledge. The current gets pretty wild going through there. This, walking around the island, I saw these things. There's a bunch of them out here. There's probably about a dozen of them. This is by far the biggest one. This is a nest of a dusky wood rat. And the lumber there, unless there are very large wood rats out there, I assume the lumber was put there by humans. It's, driftwood. And what I think happened was the wood rats started on a nest, and then human beings thought, well, let's see if we can help them out. So they made a teepee out of driftwood, and then the wood rats went, yeah, cool. We'll use that as our superstructure. And they made this gigantic nest. I mean, I think this thing is about, I don't know, it's probably 3 feet high, maybe not more than that. It's not like 8 feet high or anything, but it's still, the other ones are about a foot high. All right, so next adventure is to Drake's Estero. And like I said, I've been in Marin for 50 years, and I've hiked all over here, but I keep looking at these places going, wouldn't it be cool to have a boat out there? So this is a trip from Drake this is the old oyster company. I'll show you in a minute, out to the mouth of Drake's Estero. This at the bottom of this picture is Drake's Bay, and then to the right is Limmentor Beach, and to the left bottom is the Point Reyes, and this is 20 Mile Beach over to your left. So this is Drake's Estero, and this is the old oyster company, the controversial old oyster company. And here's what it looks like now. And that's where you put in, is where the oyster company is. There's a parking lot there, and I put my rowboat in there. And then it's a bit of a hump to get out. Again, you don't want to do it against the wind, and you got to have enough water. It's very shallow out here. But this is out at the mouth. I brought my boat up to the beach at the mouth of Drake's Estero. Now, one of the things about most of these trips with a rowboat is there's nobody there. I mean, it's the solitude and the peace and quiet that you experience. I mean, you earned it, but still, it's so cool that this is right next to one of the great cities in the world. And this is just accessible, but how cool is that? All right, so that was one trip. I've done 2 more trips out there. One was to Creamery Bay, which I didn't make it to. That's over here. I didn't make that because the wind came up and current, but this is Schooner Bay, the middle one. And then I did go over to Home Bay. Home Bay, if you have ever hiked out the Estero Trail, this is the parking lot for the Estero Trail. And you walk through the trail here and then through the woods, and then you cross a little bridge right here. And then out here, you head out to Drake's Head. And so for this trip, I made this is called a bathoscope, not a bath escape, a bathoscope, which is basically a bucket with a piece of plexiglass on the bottom. And this allows you to look under the boat, like a glass bottom boat, right? I tried it in the bay, but it's much too murky in the bay. But this is clearer up here. And what I saw was this stuff. Now, maybe after I get done, somebody can help me with it. There's a war going on between Pacific cordgrass and Spartina. And I think the Spartina is invasive. And anyway, this is a big deal for people who are oceanographers or interested in the ecology of the sea, because this is a very important part of the health of the oceans, this kind of grass. And it was part of the discussion with the oyster company closing. So anyway, I could see this. This is through the very elegant bathoscope on my boat. So this is that little bridge I mentioned, and that's low tide, but I didn't go at low tide. This is me at high tide, and there's that little bridge. And I have stood on that bridge many times before going, man, wouldn't it be cool to have a boat out here? And these guys were thinking, what is this weirdo? right around the corner from there, I don't know, maybe a quarter mile away, I pull my boat up on the beach. And again, just the solitude right here is wonderful, palpable. It's not like I don't like people, don't get me wrong, but it's just a wonderful spot. Okay, we're going to move back into San Francisco Bay now. And, um, you know, the bay has all kinds of drainages, and they end up in all sorts of different places, and we kind of ignore them. We just have bridges over everything, and we drive by and we, oh, it's okay, there's a bridge. And you don't really pay any attention, but there are a lot of waterways in Marin County, and they can't really be accessed by anything except a canoe or a kayak or a rowboat. Although, truth be told, I launched my dinghy out here in San Pablo Bay and sailed it up here about this far, but it was getting pretty narrow, and I had a workout time to tack back. I made it, but it gave me new respect for Henry Hudson, who sailed all the way up to Albany, I think. I mean, how that was done, I have no idea. Anyway, this is the purple one is the North Fork of Las Colinas Creek, and the black one is the South Fork. This is McGinnis Park. This is the sewage company right around here. This is the settling ponds for the sewage. The Las Colinas sanitary district or sewage district. This is Santa Venetia, and this is Santa Margarita Island, which is another really cool place to visit. You don't have to have a boat to get there. You can just park out here in Santa Venetia someplace and walk over to this island, which is very cool. There's no houses or anything out there. Anyway, both times, yeah, you got to go in here on high tide. This is as far as I could get before I went aground. And then here, this is really shallow, so I had to beat feet out of there before the tide fell. This is going south now to San Rafael. I launched this out I launched out of Loch Lomond and rode all the way down to the end of the canal. Probably people with sailboats may have done this, but there's something really cool about having a very tiny boat and be able to do intimate inspections of little thises and that's, nooks and crannies of the canal. So that's San Rafael. This is Corte Madera Creek. And here, I've done this a bunch of times, but anyway, this track here, if you can see where my pointer is right there, that's where the creek kind of isn't natural anymore. And that's another thing we do to the drainages around Marin is we'll control them by lining them, basically making them into drainage ditches with concrete linings. And that's what happens right here. And this is the College of Marin right here. This is all the College of Marin. And right here, it just becomes a drainage ditch, but there's no sign saying fools in rowboats cannot proceed into the drainage ditch. So I just kept rowing, and it still floats, I mean, it's water. So I kept going, and I made it all the way up to Ross before I ran out of water. This is Ross up here. And this is in Mill Valley. I launched down under the Richardson Bay Bridge and went up to, this is the Old Mill Creek, but actually the official name is Corte Madera del Presidio. Corte Madera, by the way, just means cut wood. I'm not really sure. That doesn't seem like there must be a practical reason why Corte Madera became, maybe lumber related thing. Cut wood, that doesn't. So Corte Madera del Presidio is like a fort. So that's the real name of Old Mill Creek is Corte Madera del Presidio. So I rode up here again, ran out of water right about here, which is, I think this is a 2 a.m. club, right? This is Miller Avenue. And I think this is a 2 a.m. club up here. So that's how far I got. Not very far. All you sailors will know where the 2 a.m. club is. All right. Now back on the main bay. That's Whisper out there anchored on the stupid side of Angel Island. Nobody would do this, but we figured that if we left early enough in the morning, we could anchor Whisper and row the dinghy ashore. This is Terry and I did this. Row the dinghy ashore and then get back there before, before the wind came up and the boat was driven around on Angel Island. And we succeeded, but I must say that rowing back, I think Terry did the heavy lifting here, but rowing back was a little bit of a piece of work getting back to the boat. By the time we'd messed around there and the wind had come up from the Golden Gate. Now we're back at China Camp, where I kind of started that. That's where we launched the dinghy. I launched the dinghy first with Terry at China Camp. So we put in here, and I've been to China Camp a lot. I mean, I like it out there, and I picnicked out there. I've walked on the beach. I've had a beer at the shrimp shack out there, and I've anchored there many times for lunch or overnight, maybe for a weekend. It's just a beautiful place. I'm sure you guys are familiar with it. And every time I went out there, I thought, what is this thing out here, this rock that's just offshore? It's like not very far offshore, but then how do you get there? And so I thought an expedition needed to be mounted to get to that rock. Now, you can see right here that this is low tide. Those are rocks. That's not a beach out there. They're rocks. They're about, I'd say, anywhere from 1 to 2 feet in diameter. And they're not really friendly to land a dinghy on. So how are you going to do that? So what we did was, here's the other option, which is high tide, and you just have a cliff. So that isn't very friendly either to land on and try to get up the incline there. So we ended up going right around here, and what we did was there were 3 of us. This time it was Fred Feller, who's with us today, and Perry and myself. And what we did was we rode out here, and I think Feller was the one who jumped on the rocks and secured the bow line. And then once that was in place, I rowed back and set a stern anchor to keep the boat off the rocks because we didn't want to bash it up. And then we were able to get on the island, scramble on the island. And this is Terry going either up or down. I can't remember. Again, the grappling hook and rope business to get up to the top of Rat Rock. So we made it, and there's basically no sign of human activity up there, except there was a couple that had carved a heart in a tree and, had their initials. And I thought, I wonder if they're still around, because it looked really old. I mean, they could be divorced, they could be dead, they could have 20 grandchildren, who knows? But it was kind of funny. But that was the only sign of human occupation we saw up there. So it's not a popular place to go. This is looking back at the anchorage from the top of Rat Rock. It really is called Rat Rock. We didn't see any rats up there. They're just so you know. It's a little hard to get to, but there aren't any rats there. That's the attractive thing. This is another expedition off of China Camp. And so this is China Camp here. This is the Peacock Gap Golf Club. This is Point San Pedro, and the quarry. It looks uglier from the sky. Anyway, these are the sisters. And if you've sailed on a Vallejo race or just up that way, you will have seen the sisters, maybe noticed them opposite the brothers. It's the sisters attending to San Pedro, St. Peter, and the brothers attending to St. Paul, San Pablo. I'm not sure how they figured out who went with who, but anyway, you can, by the way, if you're going to anchor over here off of China Camp, you can sail through here. This is deep enough. But I wanted to go out and check them out. So this is what they look like. Kind of, I think this is like from shore, except blown up a bit. And then when you get out there, they're not that friendly looking either. They're kind of like Rat Rock, except worse. So I rode around them for a while, just seeing what could be done. And I did find this spot here, which is similar to our spot on Rat Rock. And, you know, use the grappling hook and the stern anchor and managed to get ashore without breaking an ankle and then climb up to the top. This white stuff here again is guano. It's very fragrant up there. But on the upside, there's nobody else there. You're going to have it to yourself if you get there. So this is from East Sister, looking back at the quarry, and at West Sister. And then on the very top, I found this. This is a benchmark. You probably heard of the term benchmark. Well, this is an actual benchmark. It's put in by the U.S. Geodetic Survey. And interestingly enough, every one of these benchmarks, wherever you find them, is cataloged online on the NOAA website. There's all kinds of details about this little obscure rock that you can find out online. There's also a $250 fine. Now, the website told me that this benchmark was put in 1921. So a $250 fine in 1921. I mean, you do the math. It's not a small fine. On the other hand, how are you going to get it out of there? I mean, you have to come out to the East Sister with, you know, some serious. You'd have to. I don't think that just a pick and shovel is going to do it for you. You're going to need something more than that. So who's going to do that? I think it's unlikely. It hasn't been disturbed, and this is like 100 years later. Okay. Looking east, there's Point San Pablo and the Brothers. This is from the top of there. And now this is, I launched in the East Bay, going around both of the brothers, East and West Brother. This is East Brother, the one with the foghorn and the lighthouse. And you probably know that this is an expensive B&B. You can go stay overnight out there and be treated very well. But you can also, for 25 bucks, they'll take you out there in their little skiff and you can spend the day, which I did with Fred and Alice Feller, who were with us today. And this is what it looks like up there on East Brother. And we happened to be there on the day of the Jazz Cup, which was very pretty to sail by. It was a really pleasant day. And then they let you go inside. Well, this is also on the top of the lighthouse, I believe, but outside maybe. And this is inside the lighthouse. They let you go there. So that there is West Brother and Mount Tam looking out the lighthouse. Pretty cool, huh? This is a model of the lightship. You know what the lightship race is? Well, they used to have an actual lightship, and this is what it looked like. I've seen photos of it, and this is a pretty accurate replica of the lightship. And so they got a model. I don't know why it's out there, but they got a model of it on East Brother. Okay, now we're moving south a bit. The East Brother light and this trip are ones that you can't go on yourself. You can't just go to East Brother. You have to take their skiff out there. For one thing, it's too dangerous to do by yourself. This one is called Brooks Island. It's down in Richmond. And this one you have to arrange with East Bay Parks and Rec they take you out there. Now, so where we are is, this is Potrero Reach, this is Brooks Island, this is Brickyard Cove, Marina Bay, the Santa Fe Channel, this is actual Potrero Point. And just to orient you, and the arrow's just there to show you, if you've seen the end of the breakwater there, that's where it is. This Brooks Island here looks like a nothing, you know, it's just kind of this little nubbin sitting out there. You probably sailed by a million times, thought nothing of it. But it's actually a very interesting place. And you see this scar here. This scar is a quarry that was used to provide the rock to build Treasure Island. Anyway, the East Bay Parks will meet you here with a kayak. And you take, well, a bunch of you paddle out to the island, and then there's several guides, and the stuff they tell you is a very interesting island for being as nondescript as it is. It's got a lot of history, and it's an interesting place to go. This is shot from the beach on Brooks Island, looking at Mount Tam. There's one of the guides there. There you go. And I don't know if you guys will right off the bat recognize this, but this is Red Rock. And we're on the bridge side of Red Rock here. There's actually a nice shelf to anchor on this side of Red Rock. It's about 10, 12 feet deep, good holding. And there's a nice beach to land a dinghy too. So we took Whisper out there, the Catalina 22, and we rowed ashore with the dinghy. There were 5 of us this time, so it took a couple of trips. This is maybe the 3rd or 4th time I'd been there. We did a little reconnaissance before we did this. You see the welcoming party. These are black-crowned night herons up here, a bunch of them. Anyway, so we came ashore. This is what the beach looks like. There's the little 22 anchored out there and Mount Tam. Actually, the beach looks nicer than this. It's kind of a pebble, sandy, pebbly beach. And then what we're trying to do is climb to the top. And so how do you get up there? Well, this side looks very steep. There might be some kind of way up there. I've never gone ashore over here. But here, if you walk around the island and you get about here, there's a rope. And who knows what the rope is attached to, but if you pull on it, it looks like it'll hold your weight. So one of us, I don't know whether it was, I think Feller did this first. There was 5 of us guys here, and none of us has seen the year 70 for a while. So these are a bunch of elderly idiots going out there and messing around like something they have no business doing. And Fred kept joking that if we fall and we have to be medevaced out of there, the headline will be 70 or 5 70-year-olds armed with only their some rope and their own ignorance tried to climb Red Rock with disastrous results. But anyway, nobody got hurt. We did make it up here. Let me continue here. There's the rope. That rope, I think, is the one that lives there. So somebody's been up before us here. Actually, people have been going up there for years. This gives you an idea of it is steep going up there. And it's not just steep, but the rock is really crumbly. It's scree. And there's a bunch of poison oak. So it's scary. You get poison oak, you could fall and die. And it's very unpleasant. So don't do this. So here we are on top, and that's Mount Tam there. There's a little plaque here that says 47 on it. And I'm sorry, I'm not at liberty. I put that there. I'm not at liberty to tell you what the metaphysical significance of the number 47 is, but it's very profound. And I'll just give you a couple of hints. There are 47 sentences in the Declaration of Independence, and there are 47 degrees between the Tropic of Capricorn and the Tropic of Cancer. So that's all I can tell you right now. But anyway, I put that in there just to prove we were there. These are the triumphant guys on the way back. Look at these old graybeard, stupid fools. So this is Bill Juice, Fred Feller, Terry Schroed, and Chuck McKinley. He was a new recruit for this episode. I don't know, just no smarter than the rest of us, obviously. So I'm going to leave you with this one more picture of an adventure in Marin County, and then we can close it up for questions. Yeah. So there you go. Messing around in boats.